Today we're back for another of our series in supermarket flowers or store-bought flowers, and I will apologise that this is quite late in the month for this video to be going up because I've had competition for the first 2 weeks of the month. That's a very intense competition. It's 6 or 7 designs every second day for 2 weeks, so that took up most of my time planning and preparing and travelling to the competition and coming back and getting ready for the next day. So now I'm ready to go back to the video side of things, and there will be still 4 videos that come out this month, which is April in 2023, but they'll be quite condensed in terms of when you see them. So for those of you who are loyal subscribers, thank you for waiting around for these ones to happen, and we'll get on with them straight away. So today I'm going to work with some sunflowers. These are flowers. This is a bunch that I did buy for the competition. I only used 1 flower out of the bunch, so we've got a few others to use. And sunflowers can often be a difficult flower to use because they're so tall and they're very heavy to use. So we're going to look at some interesting ways that we can use sunflowers. I'm going to start first of all with a tall design so that you can use the full length and get the beauty of the stems as well as the flower itself. So what we've got is just a standard cup. If you've got a vase of that size, or if you've got a taller vase, all good. We might use the vial, we might not, probably not at this stage. And this is decorative mesh that you can get in garden stores or hobby stores, and we're just going to use that to extend the glass. We're going to use the glass as our water source, but we're going to extend the display area and support for the sunflowers with this mesh. So let's get started. What I have to do first of all, which you don't need to see, is actually join the mesh so that it fits over the glass comfortably, and I'm just going to tie that with the paper covered wire, which we've used in the past. You could use cable ties, you could use paper clips, anything at all that holds it in place around your actual container. Couldn't think of the word. All right, I shall be back shortly. So here we are. I've made my cylinder to fit over the glass. I've got some water in the glass, so this just sits over the glass. She said. I've actually got the join facing the back, facing me, but that will get covered up as we add items to it. Now, as I said, I've got some sunflowers to use. There were 5 stems in the bunch. I'm going to use 3 in this particular design. So I have used 1 already in the competition. I've got another one that I will use in something else. So once again, looking at bunches where we can make more than 1 arrangement, that gives us a bit more bang for our buck. I've got some paper covered wire just in case I need to tie in some of the elements, the plant material that I'll put in here. So apart from the sunflowers, the only other thing we're going to use is some flexible foliage, and that's so that we can weave it in and out. And I've got some gum leaves, and that they will just add a little bit of interest and a different texture, and they're thin enough in the stems that I can weave them in and out of the mesh to get, and still have them into the water source to get an in and out design. So not all inside, not all outside in the design. So let's first of all look at our sunflowers. So we've got 3 pretty good ones and one that's a little bit tired, so I'll use that in a different design. So let's just release them from their bonds. Now you will notice that I've taken all of the foliage off them. The foliage on sunflowers is not particularly attractive and it droops very quickly, so I would suggest always that you take all of the foliage off sunflowers when you're using them in some way. Now we've got 3 pretty nice ones, 2 about the same size and 1 bigger. I've left 1 leaf on this one, so I'm going to use it as the petal gone already as the main placement, and I'm just going to trim that bottom edge again because it's been in the water for a little bit of time and it's started to split. So you can see where it started to split and soften a bit. So I'm going to, you can actually feel it there, so I'm going to cover it back to where it's still solid in the stem because it'll just take up the water better. And what we'll do with this one, I'll just get that leaf, that petal out. is I'm going to put the stem through some of the mesh into the water so that it will actually be on the outside of the container. Now to hold it there, I'm going to use the paper covered wire. You could use string, you could use cotton or wool to make and add a bit of colour. So you could have sort of yellow string or yellow wool to add to the design. Can't do it backwards. I'm going to turn it around so I can see what I'm doing. And I will put a second hold on it just to keep it nice and steady in place. And I'll come through, once I've finished all of the placements, I'll come through and trim those extra wires. So that's our first placement. Gives us a little bit of outside and still within the water source. We're going to place our next one because it's, just trim that end again. That one's going to go all the way inside. And rather than have them at the same heights, you know, we've talked before about having different heights and different interest in a design. So we might actually cut it down to about there, and we'll do the same thing, but we'll do it from this side so that you'll see when you're looking at it front on, you'll see that one that's coming out. This one will be sort of down here and most of it not coming out. We've got that nice bend in it, so that's going to work well for us. And we'll just measure. Now I'm cutting off these stems, but in another design I'm actually going to use the stems as part of the design, part of the decoration. So don't toss them away, because every part of a plant is useful in some fashion. Now we can have it, if this was a front-facing design, I'd have it like that, so that you could see it there and tie it off. We might leave it like that, we might do it that way. Even though this one's bending down a bit, I think it's still, once we've got the foliage in, it's going to give us lots of interest in the design. This one's pretty solid in there, so I don't think I'll tie it off. And this one, our little bud, we might have just sitting on the rim of the container. And he can be all the way in. And we will tie him. Don't quite know why they're a hymn, but yes. Today the sunflowers are hymns. I'm just going to turn this around and have a look at it, because I might, that first placement I might actually move. I think he might be hanging down a little bit low, making it a little bit too forward facing. Yes, he is. So we're going to move him to the back so that he's still coming forward, but the actual placement is at the back of the design. So one of the reasons you leave the ties on until you've finalised your design is so that you can make these adjustments. And that one's going to misbehave, so I'm going to have to tie him too. But that's okay, we can do that. I might tie him first so he's in place. Again, it's a hymn. I know I only did one tie on that top one. I can do a couple of others further down, but I'll do those after we finish the design, so you don't have to see me working intricately with the wire. Fortunately, because the camera is facing down into the vase, you're not seeing the faces I'm making while I'm trying to get this out. There we go. Now, if we do the same thing, have it. What we'll have is this placement that sits. We'll try him inside first of all, and that might work just as well. And we'll just have him tied to the back of the structure. Yes, it's fiddly, but it's worth it in the end. I'm just getting a little bit of optical illusion with my glasses and the mesh, and I couldn't quite see where the edge was. Now it looks pretty sparse now, I know, so we do need something to break up the mesh and to give it a little bit of rhythm and movement. But I do it this way so that you can see the placement and changing the placements of the feature flowers, the focal points of your arrangement, before I put in the foliage. So you can understand about moving them around and getting the best view of them that suits your eye, because what looks good to you is what matters. Now I've got a feeling that the camera angle means that you can't see the top of that design, so we'll put the foliage in and then I'll take some photos so you can actually see the top, the whole design. It's just where I've got the camera placed at the moment, I can't get it back any further to give you a broader view, so you have to bear with me today on this one. So, as I said, we've got this gum leaf which we can thread through, and that's exactly what we're going to do. And as we thread it through, we'll pull the leaves out so that they're in and out again in the design. So you just need something that's a reasonably flexible foliage that you can wind around a little bit. So with this first placement, I've chosen one that's got a reasonable stem because I want to have that as the guiding structure. So once again, it's just around. Now we could tie these with the tie wire so that they were all on the outside. Bring them through. So what I will do, because this is fiddly and you don't need to see me threading leaves through, we'll speed up the action so that you can see as I do it, but you don't have to see it in real slow time. You can see it in sped up time and see the final result. So there we have our first design for this month, using 3 sunflowers and 1 stem of a flexible foliage, in this case the gum leaves. As you would have seen, I added a test tube to the top at the back because I just wanted a little bit more height for the foliage to mirror the placement that we've got with the sunflower at the top. As I said, I'll take some photos so you can see the whole design, and that's a simple way to use up a very little amount of foliage for something that looks a little bit natural, a little bit like you've gathered it from the garden. Only 3 flowers out of your bunch of sunflowers that you got from the supermarket or the store, and an extension of just an ordinary drinking glass so that you can have some height in a design and use the sunflowers, because you will get them with log stems, so use the full length of their stems and keep them looking bright and sunny. So there we have it, our first design for April 2023 using supermarket flowers. I'm Kim Bailey and this is Floral Art Online.